And good evening. Welcome once again to another edition of The Truth Hour. My name is Johnny Guzman. As always, a pleasure to be here sharing truth with you. Tonight, a very special program. We have all-star lineup tonight. Breaking news, as most of you know tonight, there was a guilty verdict, and we're going to have Mr. Kevin Annett here with us, who is going to explain exactly what went on today in this decision that is so crucial for humanity. And of course, we're going to have Kate of Gaia and Tony C from Synchronicity.com. They will be here. As always, they join us each and every Monday. And of course, a special guest as well, our good friend from Australia, Santos Bonacci from BonacciTheFilm.com. He will be here with us in just a few minutes as well to hear this fantastic story that the system, the Pope and the Crown are coming down. Very well. Let's say hello to our friends. Tony, how are you, my friend?
Not too bad, Johnny. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Tonight we have a great show. And of course, after this breaking news, this guilty verdict that we're going to speak to Kevin, you guys have some interesting information as well that you want to share with us in just a few minutes. Let's say hello to Santos. Santos, where are you?
Hello, how are you, Johnny?
Okay, Santos.
Very well.
And tonight we have a fantastic program. We're going to get your input as well on what's going on this verdict that the Vatican and the Pope and the Queen and I believe the Prime Minister of Canada are all going to jail. And we're going to get your input as well on that. Kate, my friend, how are you?
Good, Johnny. How you doing? Sorry, I was muted, so it takes a second to react. There you go. Yeah, doing really good. Should be a very informative show tonight. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And of course, you and Tony have some interesting news to share from your other radio show that you guys did. Someone, I believe, called in and shared some very interesting information, and I'm sure that our fans are just going to enjoy to hear that breaking news as well. And of course, we have the man of the hour, Kevin Annett. How are you, Kevin?
I'm fine. Thanks a lot for having me.
And of course, Kevin, thank you again for being here tonight. And thank you for bringing this justice to the world. So why don't we start with you, Kevin? Tell us, please, about this so important news that you brought to us today. Now, it was very important to have you on because our Spanish community, I was posting this all over the Facebook and all over the social networks, and they were thinking it was a joke. This was a joke. You know, it's just one of those other things to grab attention and so forth. And it got me kind of mad a little bit because I know this is not a joke. So a lot of people have heard this news, but I think there's still some doubt. And they're saying, well, you know, they brought George Bush to some criminal charges on him and Dick Cheney, but nothing ever happened. So please explain to our audience what went on in this verdict that was given today on Monday. Kevin.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's not a symbolic decision at all. It has the standing of international law and common law behind it. In any legal system around the world, when the government, the courts are not protecting the community, it's a long custom for people to take action to protect their communities. This is simply what we're doing. We also have standing under international law that has already found these institutions, violating the Convention on Genocide in the case of the Canadian residential schools and other things. So it's not so much that what we're doing is inappropriate or legitimate. It's that nobody's had the will up till now to confront these big institutions. What we found over the last little while after the verdict came out, we have had over 300,000 hits around the world on our website. We've had the Italian media going ballistic over the story. We've even had the Cardinal in England resign and saying he's not coming to the conclave to elect the Pope, which is unbelievable for a Cardinal to make a statement. So I think we're seeing what happened 500 years ago when the Reformation came along. We're seeing the disintegration of this institution.
Kevin, so what is the next step? I mean, you mentioned in your announcement that the Pope, the Queen, and I believe the Prime Minister of Canada have until the 4th of March. Is this correct? I mean, what is that? Tell us, please.
Well, the guilty verdict that came out today was accompanied with a sentencing that said that they have 1 week to respond. They had 3 opportunities to present a defense, and they declined from even challenging the charges made against them or offering counter evidence, which is a statement in itself that they wouldn't defend their own reputation like that. But they have a week to respond, and after that, the court in Brussels plans to issue international citizens arrest warrants and seek hearings in courts in Europe and various countries to enter the evidence and get them to issue arrest warrants within their territories as well for these criminals. So, if the Prime Minister of Canada ever came to a particular country, he'd be arrested under international law. Now, the important thing, people have often said, well, how are you going to arrest the Pope? This is kind of like when the Minutemen took a shot at the British Army in 1775. It was called a shot heard round the world. The Minutemen didn't defeat the British Empire, but they were the catalyst that activated people the whole nation to rise up. And this is very similar to what we're doing. We're a catalyst hoping that this example will be copied. Citizens will protect their own communities and their children. And, we have every indication that this is this tidal wave is building.
Okay, so these orders will go out for the citizens that they have the authority to arrest the Pope, the Queen. Kevin, is this correct?
Well, absolutely. These people have conducted a criminal conspiracy. In the Vatican, it's called a law called Crimen Solicitanus. Every priest and bishop in the Catholic Church in the world has to cover up child rape and protect child rapists, or they'll be excommunicated. That's a Vatican directive. It's been in policy since 1962. Now, that's a criminal conspiracy going on. Since the police are doing nothing about it, it's up to the citizens to do that. That's our customary right, first of all. Queen Elizabeth has beheaded a criminal conspiracy that killed over 50,000 children in Indian boarding schools across Canada. That death rate, all of that is posted at hiddennolonger.com, all the hard evidence, and at itccs.org. You go to the November 6th and January 30th postings, all of that hard evidence is up online. So, yes, we have a very strong basis morally and legally to take this action.
Okay. Santos, let's get a quick question for you. What does this mean now for you, Santos, to hear this announcement that Kevin has given us today? Santos.
Well, I'm very excited because by my part, I've presented many evidences against the Vatican and the crimes that it's committed. The pages of history are full of evidence. There's no doubt about it. This is a monstrous, blood-letting killing machine of megalithic proportions. Never has anything like this ever been seen, in the universe, really. So how else was it going to end? I mean, it wasn't going to end in a nice way. Thank you for your business, humanity. Sorry to have killed a couple of billion of you because you didn't believe what we were teaching. Sorry, all you 300 million indigenous American Indians. We decapitated your culture, stole all your books, hoarded them in the Vatican. Of course it's got to finish this way. Of course it has to finish where we take it upon ourselves to see the end of Goliath. Because remember King David was looking around, he was going, is anyone going to try this Goliath? He's taunting the battlefields of Israel and no one is going to challenge him. So he raced off and picked up 5 stones and did it himself. With 1 stone. So as Kevin said, it doesn't look like the police or the army are doing anything at the moment. They will, but they've been paid. You see, they've been paid by the banks to protect the criminals. So it will be inevitably up to us. And it's a joy to see because Kevin and Kevin's organisation have provided something for us finally that we can stand behind and support. We can give our support to it. I give my 100% support to it. So, and I know many other hundreds of thousands of people do too, because never before have these authorities been challenged like this in such a way, in a legal, proper way, lawful, peaceful, the proper way.
Okay. Kevin, but explain, Santos just said this is the legal, proper way. So there's a lot of people, Kevin, you there?
Yes, I'm here, yeah.
How can you explain to the folks that may not understand how this is legal? Because the thing is, like, they'll say, well, they never showed up to court. You can't accuse someone of being guilty if they never showed up to court to defend themselves. You know, so...
Well, actually,
go ahead.
You can. If they don't respond under customary law, silence means consent. It means they're not challenging what's being said against them. So by their silence, they've agreed with what we've charged them under any, common law system. Also, it was legal for the Nazis to kill millions of people. It was legal for George Bush to order the slaughter of people in Iraq. This is not about legality, it's about lawfulness. Laws are passed by governments and churches to justify their killing and their slaughter, but they're not lawful. And what we're doing here is lawful in the sense that we need a new legal system to judge institutions that have committed crimes against humanity. They did it after World War II. They created a new legal concept, crimes against humanity in international law. We're standing on that tradition. And frankly, the Vatican and these governments are in the same position the Nazis were after World War II. And they're actually making the same arguments that people were.
Kate,
Yes, I hear you.
You have quite a history with these criminals and these court systems. What is your input on this situation, Kate?
Well, I'm going to bring a couple of things to light that most people, generally don't consider. What Kevin's talking about is with the legal system as it's set up, it's all lex merchantorium. It is Phoenician, commercial, maritime, you call it, fictitious corporate law. And for many centuries, it goes back further than 1302, but for many centuries, layer by layer, mankind has been enslaved. I've covered this a few times, but I'll give some background information. You can look up Edward Longshanks, the entrapment of the family name, surname. The only thing that keeps this legal system afloat is the mimicry of natural law. And the surnames, when you talk about a family name, what they've done is way back they've claimed all the families. So if you claim to have a family name, you are actually in consent with this legal bullshit system. What Kevin's bringing to the table is we're going back a whole lot further. Where if one being harms another being, you can't buy your way out of it, because that's what this system effectively is right now. And it's all about money. It's all about bonds. It's all about wheeling and dealing. You've heard it. Well, they cut a deal today, and that's what it's all about. It's about cutting deals. And here's the thing. When you rape and murder a child, be it any child, native or otherwise, you already cut your deal. You already made your intent. And what people forget is it's not about trying to prove a crime. It's proving the intent. If the intent was there, that is the ethereal. That is the natural law. That is the choice of that spiritual being, be it light or dark, has made. And that is already done and in the ether before they actually do the physical act. So what's happening now is we're starting to back up again, where we're holding the living, where and the only living that can be in a courtroom is a witness, right? You can't be a dead being. Dead men tell no tales. So what we are, effectively, are witnesses to these crimes. And you cannot, you can't debunk a witness in any system, theirs or otherwise. So what Kevin's bringing to the table is a quorum. He's bringing, 12 jurors, peers, other earthlings. Let's just make it really basic here. I don't want to talk about borders because, on this planet, it's only one Earth. There's only one race, humanity. Well, there's a couple others, but we'll leave that out of it for now. But the fact of the matter remains, what Kevin brings to the table is a return to that, making not the individual, the being, the spiritual being accountable. And it circumvents all of their legal nonsense, their legal wranglings, their bullshit, their ability to buy their way out of things that has been complete fraud for centuries. So there's a bit of a paradigm shift that people have to get into here, and you have to start realizing that the whole court system that has been built around is a complete illusion, and it's designed simply and strictly for merchant law. It is all about the money, the law of the high seas. And these, cops and all the rest of it that they're supposed to be out there helping and stopping crimes, these are the worst pirates or privateers. And that's all they are, privateers. They're commissioned officers, and they come and raid vessels. These are vessels, right? This is my address. This is where I live. I don't live in a building under the UPU code, or the UCC or any of that. I am a spiritual being living in a meat stick, having a little bit of an experience. And I'm sorry, these guys that are out harming other beings having a physical experience, time's up, game over. And the Pope stepping down is just the beginning. This is going to get real interesting real quick.
Okay. Tony, how's the atmosphere over in England? What are the newspapers saying about this, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. The atmosphere in England, well, it's very exciting at the moment. We had first sort of like hearing with the BBC and the 9/11 situation, which of course is linked to the Crown, and the Queen of England as well. So there's a lot going on, but it's going on on many different fronts. It is the breaking down of the system, basically. That's what we're looking at. And it's doing it on many different levels. I mean, it's all linked because it's all the Roman Empire. And it is the third and final fall of the Roman Empire. It's incredible what's happening. It's unprecedented. The hits that we've been having off the website have been incredible. The information I've been getting back on all of these different things is truly, it's incredible, brilliant.
Santos, you and I have done many shows on our channel, Santos. And
yes,
and we've done a couple of astro cards for the Vatican. Santos, are you there?
Yes, brother.
Okay,
I'm here.
And we've said that this was coming probably about a good 8 months ago. I don't know if you remember when we did the astrological chart for the Vatican and these things. In Spanish and English, we did that. And a lot of people are writing to us now, and they're saying, wow, you guys were right. It wasn't all BS that, we were analyzing the stars and you were analyzing the stars and presenting this information. So what can you tell us about that now that, people are finally seeing this, that, it's not that you predicted anything, you just interpret it, Santos.
Yeah. You may remember too, Johnny, that we did a chart on early July, late June, when the Libor scandal began, and you will remember we did a show way back in March, April, and we looked at the end of June, start of July, and saw that. That a couple of days after July 4th, we saw that there was all of these oppositions and squares in the chart, and because of the placement, we knew it would be as ecclesiastical because of Uranus being in Aries. So I remember on that show clearly that I said that there would be something financial that would happen. Weeks later, it came out, because it wasn't as clear at the time. Same thing happened with this. It's in the stars. I mean, when you look at, I've done this many times. When you look at the cardinal cross, the solstitial axis is ruled by Capricorn and Cancer, and the equinoctial axis is ruled by the Lamb of God, Aries, and the other great seventh sign called Libra. Though that is the cardinal cross. This one, according to astrologers, is political and governmental, governing of the mind. This one is ecclesiastical, you see. Now, obviously, if you've got Pluto in Capricorn, the destructive, transformative planet, squaring 90 degrees with Uranus in Aries, both cardinal signs, the lamb and the goat. So you've got Capricorn and Aries, the lamb and the goat, the sheep and the goats. That's what's going on. And the reason why the sheep and the goats is such a big theme in Scripture is because the goat controls the government and the sheep, the lamb, controls the ecclesiastical. Both of those are under massive, massive destruction. Both of them. Big destruction because of this square between Pluto and Uranus, which will last for the next 6 years, 5 or 6 years, solidly. This will be the absolute destruction of external organizations and institutions, and it will be an overhaul of the religious, spiritual path that mankind has been on. Totally going to be transformed. And this is the beginning. It's just the beginning.
Santos, so what do you think is what would you say is the next current event or the next event that will occur now that this is being brought to light? And then we're going to ask the same question to Kevin, but I'd like to hear your take on this. What do you think is going to happen next?
What's going to happen next, I believe, in one way or another, is such a big exposure of all the fictions that all of humanity will have at least the chance, the opportunity to wake up and realize and see all the fictions for what they really were. And this is the moment when humanity stands up and says, we will take the responsibility as flesh, blood, conscious organisms to rule our own lives, to be self-determined, because not to determine your own path will allow institutions to creep in again, fictions to creep in again and take over and have so much control as they have done because we've been sleepy. So I think the next thing is just going to jolt us, and it will happen in March. If something big definitely is preparing for March, folks, all you need to do is get on the internet, go into an astrological site and put, say, I don't know, 24th or 25th of March, early April, put those dates in all around Aries, and you'll see all of the activity going on in Aries. So all of these planets are going to come to help Uranus in his objective of revolutionizing all of our minds, because Uranus is in Aries. Aries is the cerebrum. All of our cerebrums are being activated and you could say awakened, because Uranus is electric, revolutionary, and he's having influence on the cerebrum, the high brain, not the cerebellum. So this is the heaven brain. So we are actually going to the heaven, the head, as I've explained. And that will happen in a big way in March. Rest assured, big action in March, according to the stars.
Okay, Kevin, same question for you. What's next? Because Kevin, because there's a lot of people that are saying, well, this is great. They're bringing charges in Canada to the Prime Minister, but what about in the United States? So why isn't there anything being done there, Kevin?
Well, actually, a lot is happening in the States. About a quarter of all our citizen jurors came from the U.S. The real question is not what the few of us who are the catalysts now are going to do. The question is what is everybody going to do, along the lines of what Santos was saying. We're not the substitute for everybody else. We're just the spark. Now, cataclysmic times are coming. They've already started. People have to make choices, and there's a big separation coming between people who live in the old vibration, the old illusion, and those who are going to make this shift and transition. The choice is for each one of us we have to make. But we've given people more than enough evidence. They do not have the defense of ignorance anymore. They know what they're dealing with. They know they're dealing with blood-soaked institutions, genocidal histories. If they continue to be part of that, they'll go down with it. It's that simple. We have to break away, and those who are going to will do that. So it's a sifting out time, and people have got to stop pointing fingers and looking at themselves and saying, what am I going to do to make that shift?
Exactly, but I mean, this is fantastic news because, like you said earlier before, someone had to step up and say, you know what, we're going to dare to challenge the big dogs, because no one is just saying, well, how can you arrest the Queen, or how can you even attempt? These guys are way above the law. You can't touch these guys. So you've done something amazing here. But has other people, other organizations contacted you, Kevin, to support this cause?
They have. In fact, we've had more response now than we've ever had because of this act. It was kind of a conjuncture of things, a coinciding of acting at the right time, dropping a match in the right place at the right time. And we are all chosen for different purposes, and people see that and recognize it, and they are responding, but people are responding with fear, a lot of fear. And, I know in my own life, the only way to deal with fear is by going into your heart and saying, think of the children who are going to die tomorrow if we don't act. Think of the ones suffering right now because of our own fear, and then it dissipates for me. I think that's true in every one of us, and we have to draw on that.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, now that you touched on that fear, are you fearful for your life right now? Because, you've challenged, like I said before, the big dogs. And these guys, people disappear for these kinds of things. I know before, about an hour before we came on the air, your whole system collapsed. And the other day, Kate and Tony, which they're going to talk about this as well, they were interviewing someone, and someone hacked the page and everything went down. So are you fearful for your life or for your loved ones, Kevin?
No, I'm not. I have fear sometimes. Every man or woman does, but it fades quickly because I've learned something that I didn't know 10 or 20 years ago, and that is they cannot defeat us. When we stand in our power, there's nothing they can do. If they kill us, so what? Our spirit, our beliefs enter into other lives and live on. I believe that. We are eternal souls, and there's nothing they can do to stop us when we stand in the truth. All they can do is lie and deceive us. And that's what we have to step out of that lie. So no, threats come, attacks continue to come, but that's the sign of their weakness and the fact that they've surrendered, essentially.
Kate,
right
Kate,
here.
What happens to us when we fall into that state of fear, Kate?
Well, I'm glad that you're going to let me touch on this, because this is a critical point. Everyone, as Kevin says, everyone feels fear. There's no question. Everyone, and that leaves that including the dark side. It's what we do with it. It's how we handle it and how we remanifest into a power position. And what Kevin said as far as fear for life, I've been in enough situations seeking the truth and standing in the truth as I felt it. It's not a thinking thing. It's you know when you're doing something wrong, and you know when you're doing something right, something that is for the good or something that's feeding the not so good, the things that you need to get rid of, the demons, as it were. Because all the demons that you might think of, they're all self-contained. They're the ones that we have to deal with. But what Kevin's saying is absolutely true. I know the same thing. I don't believe anything. These are things that I've finally come to terms with, where I was in doubt. Now I know. We are eternal. And regardless of a meat stick, and I refer to it, I probably have a certain amount of disdain for the human body, although it is the universe. Everything's fractal. It's not to make less of that. What I'm trying to do is separate the concept of people thinking that they are a body, and that somehow, if you consider a car and a driver, when the driver gets out of the car, what's the car doing? Well, it's just going to sit there until it's reanimated by you. And you, the spirit, are the animator of this vehicle or vessel that you're walking around in. There's been many days. I've faced down some serious, scary, Goonie type people that are programmed automatons that are just fetching treats, for their masters. They're playing fetch for their masters, and there's not a day that doesn't go by that these things don't enter our mind. But Kevin said it correctly again. The only fear that is out there right now is their fear of us, and that's why they do silly little things like hack websites and shut Skype shows, radio shows that we're doing on Skype, or Skype phone calls down. This is the extent that they can do. And once you stand in that powerful circle of truth, nothing can touch you. Nothing. And that's a tough place to stand. There was another thing that Kevin had touched on that I really wanted to get into as well, along the same lines of fear. That's the other thing too. you know, myself, Tony Santo, Kevin, we all get attacked in one way or another. Thankfully, me not so much. I got some wind from some people today. But isn't it interesting that this is the separation of the wheat and the chaff? And when people have to go out of their way to attack others, that just means they're caught up in the drama. And what they're missing is the true power of life, and that is the intent. What Kevin has done, what Santo has done, Tony, yourself, Johnny, myself, and everyone that is moving into this already planned by the stars destiny that we're moving through is why we're here. Nothing's going to change that. The intent is there. And whether people agree with me or Kevin or Santo or whatever is irrelevant. It is totally irrelevant. And they're missing the point of what the intent is. My intent is to change things for the better for my children and in turn all children. I look at the children that are murdered in the same light as I look at my own children because they are part of me. And for them, yeah, I will stand. I was confronted once down in the holding cells in the courts when they had me last March. And the one guy looked at me and he's like, they were starting to get stunned. This was, I think, my 6th trip into court on going back to my own home. They called it break and enter with intent. No, it was exposing the fraud that was scaring them. And he looked at me and he says, "Why are you here?" And I just looked him square in the eyes and says, "You know, there are some people that can stand for themselves, and there are others that cannot and will not be able to speak. So what I do is I have that ability, so I speak for those that will not speak, including yourself, because you're trapped more in the machine than anyone, because you're aiding and abetting in the crime of harming me who is trying to help you."
That's right. That's right. That's right. Tony, Tony, do you think that this could be a sort of like a distraction? In other words, you know, the other dark beings are sort of throwing everything at the Pope right now and at the Vatican, sort of almost like for the folks just to say, well, yeah, these are the criminals, you know, and not to see the banking system and not to see the other criminals that are behind them as well. Do you think that this could be, Tony?
No, definitely not. And one of the things is, I've been saying for a long time, what you've got to do, it's no good chiseling away at the bottom of the pyramid. You're just going to take out the layer above it or the layer above it. What you need to do in order to take the entire thing down, and it has to be in its entirety, because it's like a weed. If you pull it up, the root will grow. You've got to get it out with the weeds and everything else. And the way to do that is to go for the eye of the pyramid. That's why it's the all-seeing eye. This is the point. It's all-seeing, and it's the puppet master again, as we talked about before. So it's no good chiseling away at halfway up there. You've got to go straight for the top. And that's the fundamental difference that's occurring now, because it's the controllers at the top that are being taken out. And that they're all in a club that the majority of us aren't actually in. Whatever name you want to call it, the Roman Empire, the Vatican, the banking elite, the Jesuits, whatever. Whatever name you give it doesn't really matter. That's the beauty of the illusion. They've given it a name and said, oh, it's that name or it's this name. No, there's a whole construction, there's a whole grid there. And that's been controlling all of us. And no, I'll give you another example why as well, because it's technology as well, and this is a massive part of it. Free energy. I mean, there's no need for a monetary system if we've got excess gold, excess food, excess water, excess travel ability, excess energy, all these sorts of things. And these are all the constructs. So when you take these things out of the equation, they can't be used to control you like sheep corralled into a certain area. That's what the laws are, the legal systems, political systems, the medical systems, the financial systems. All of these systems are control grids, and they're all constructed, as in constructs, to keep the people corralled into this fear agenda. And once this system starts coming down, and that includes, they're all linked. You can't separate one from the other.
Right.
And when the technology starts coming out, which is also what's happening now, it changes everything, because we've suddenly got technology that we thought was Star Trek stuff, and actually we find out it's real. Santos and Kate and I were on a show the other day, and we were visited by a surprise call of Ben Stillings. And if people do research on Ben, they'll find out that he was involved in secret CIA, NSA, Black Ops.
It's actually, Tony, jumping in here, Brett Stillings. It was Brett Stillings. You're dealing with too many people every day. I know why you said that, so it's Brett, sorry.
Totally. No, that's fine. As I say, Brett contacted the show, and he was talking about science principally. And I figured out, it resonated with what he was saying, because what he was saying was right. He was talking about particles and matter and being waves. And if you break the sciences down again, there's another construct gone. But the technology that they've really got is incredible. And this is the stuff that's been hidden in the Vatican, in the vaults, hidden in esoteric agendas, all sorts of things. They've been hiding the truth. And now the truth is coming out into the light, all of it.
Right, but Tony, but no one, I mean, the other day we talked a little bit about, when we talked about the Pope, but we talked also about the Jesuits. No one's talking about the Jesuits. No one's talking about the criminal banking organization, and none of those guys, no one has brought them to court. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh, they are.
So what's that?
They are.
What?
I'm saying they are. They have been. This is why Iceland told the banks to go and sling the hook, basically. There's and people are talking about the Jesuits. We've had Marty Leeds on, who's talking about gematria, which is all about how the letters are all encoded into the hands and all sorts of other strange things. We've had Jose Barrera on, talking about the paradigms within the brain, the subconscious, the superconscious, and how we've been fooled all of our lives into not using the powers that we all have, and being corralled into these corners again by them hiding the information of who we really are. We've been fooled into the meat stick, as Kate says, and the meat stick. It's not just about the meat stick. It's about our freedom. If we want to be free, we're going to have to stand up and declare ourselves free, and not put up with the rubbish anymore. And that can be in any one of the constructs. It has to be all of them. It's like we're not taking it anymore. That's enough, and that's what we've got to do as a race, for our own sake and our generations ahead.
Right, Santos.
Yes, brother.
When we understand this, I mean, you also talk about reclaiming dominion and this fiction and all these double entities, that they've created for us. How can you explain that, for example, the concept of money that, for example, that we need? Let's say you and I are going to do business, right? Just to divert ourselves a little bit from what we're talking about, but I think it's relevant to this. But in between you and I, there's some other people who benefit from that. Do you know what I'm saying? Is that I provide a service for you, you're going to give me something, but in between us, some big corporations are going to benefit from us. So how do we now, as this situation that Kevin has brought to the world, and then we're seeing it's starting to collapse, how do we start to think differently now about the monetary system and about our religions, Santos?
Yeah, good question, Johnny, because this is why they call money currency. Very, very convenient to use their tricky little words. But the true currency, they know that there's only one currency, and that is our labor, our good hearts, our word. I will do this, I will do that. And they know that exchange between living organisms is true currency. So this is why they've interloped. They're parasites. It's a parasitic entity that says, oh, look, there's some currency over there. We're a bunch of lazy thugs. How can we harvest that energy? So they invent a thing called money. Of course, money has always been pressed by the priest craft. Please make no illusion. Never has a king been allowed. And if he did, like a president like JFK, if he did try to create a greenback or a different currency that was not in the hands of the parasite banksters, they would be removed. So, in other words, the message is this: we, the priestcraft, we, the temple priests. This is why the Federal Reserve looks like a temple, banks look like temples, courts look like temples, judges sit on benches. They're all taking their little bit of tax from the currency, the true currency. And so they interpose this fictional currency on us so that they can actually then they can get a slice of our true currency, because we've given our faith and our backing to their fictional fiat currency. So we're the idiots that are supporting these parasites, because we say, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll use your money, we'll use your fictional currency, thank you very much. And so this is what Kate was alluding to before, that, you know, policemen and costumed and uniformed types are actually just going around collecting, collecting goodies and bonuses and taxes just for these slave masters. So it's going to be beautiful when the criminal element alone is jailed and dealt with properly on this planet, and then we will see how beautiful it is to be able to really exchange true currency. It's going to be wonderful to get rid of interest, which will happen. It must happen. It's an aberration in the universe elsewhere, and then we can exchange our love, and we won't have a false value put over all of our actions. Everything we do now is monetized, because the Vatican wants a slice of every action that we do. Everything's monetized, man. They're monetizing signatures. That's why they're so keen to get you to sign on the dotted line, please, sir. All that's going away, all that fiction.
Yeah. So yeah, I was talking to my brother last night, Santos, and he was telling me over in the States, in New Jersey specifically, he says, now, you know, with this whole situation with the floodings, you know, now they're jacking up the insurance for the flood insurance, and they're forcing people to either lift your houses up, which is going to cost you $50,000, or you get flood insurance for $27,000 a year. I mean, this is insane. So, and people, when he was telling me this, I was asking, but are they still accepting this? I mean, people are taking this. He goes, I don't know, man. I think people are finally starting to wake up, you know. But
yeah. There's only one word that describes all of their instruments that they use, their monetized securities and bonds and all of their crap, and that's called indulgences. That's all it is. They are working for the Inquisition. The Inquisition went underground, changed its tactics, and employed thugs like Jesuits, Dominicans, and all of those very, very well trained New World Order types. Anyone that has been trained in their education system gets drilled to work for the fiction. It's their god. They don't recognize the God of the Spirit, the Christ, the consciousness within, that we are all individual quantum units of. They don't recognize that. This is why they want you to have a number, a SIN number, S-I-N, and they want you to have a name, especially a surname. You've got to attach that one on there in all capital letters too, if you don't mind, because then we can hypothecate your signature, and we can make, instead of $100,000 on each court case, we can make a couple of million. So please throw in the slave surname in with your SIN numbers when you come to court. Thank you very much.
Santos, someone emailed me the other day and said, you know what, Johnny, even if Ratzinger were to come out tomorrow and say, you know what, this is all a farce, you've all been lied to, there's no Jesus, there's no, you know, this is all a lie, we've stolen your money, people would just say, you know what, Ratzinger has gone nuts. They still wouldn't believe. Do you think that could happen, Santos?
Yeah, this is probably why no one out there of importance really wants to talk about disclosure, because they're going to be, labelled and branded an idiot for a couple of months maybe, until full disclosure really comes in terms of full awakening. But and they can't bear that. They'd rather look good. You know, they want to look good. They want to look slick with their Armani suits everywhere they go. The supporters of the party line, fully sold into the fiction, fully educated in the ways of Rome, to work against God, to work against the Creator. They are working against humanity, and yet they're, Lord, Lord, we are doing great deeds in your name. We are prophesying in your name. We are expelling demons in your name. Lord, Lord. Not everyone saying to me, Lord, Lord, in that day will enter into the kingdom of heavens. For I will say to them, get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. I never knew you. So the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Catholics, they're all sodomizing little boys and stealing people's money in donations in the corner box. I think they are the ones that are actually saying, Lord, Lord. Oh, Lord, we did this. The Jehovah's Witnesses, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, for instance, I used to tally how many hours I spent in the field ministry. If I did 10 hours, that was pretty low. 20 hours is good. The elders come along and pat you on the back. Oh, Brother Bonacci, 20 hours last week, that was really good. Jehovah will be happy with you. I mean, they even want to know how many hours you do.
Oh my
What
God.
the? Like God's up there going, oh, 10 hours talking about me's not enough. Santos, pull your finger out and do some more. I mean, this is how hierarchical and how... rather than a universal savior, they have created personal little saviors for everybody. Don't worry, Jesus will come and wipe your bottom. You just come to this church and put donations in that box there.
Wow.
And all of that's got to end.
Yeah.
It's all based on indulgences. There's one word for the whole system, brothers: indulgences. Everything, every little bit of paper that they send you in with your all caps name in the mail when you pick up the letters, it's just an indulgence. Do you want to pay an indulgence to get to heaven, or do you want to find heaven within?
That's right. That's right. Kevin, who else is involved in this guilty verdict? Because we just know, Kevin, we just heard the Pope, the Queen, and the Prime Minister. Who else have you guys brought charges against?
There's 30 defendants. They're all listed. If you go to itccs.org today, just go down the first. The posting is in both English and Italian. And near the bottom, you'll see the documents that have been attached. And in the documents, you see the 30 defendants. A lot of them are church officials in Canada, members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the head of Weyerhaeuser Logging Company. I mean, people who profited off genocide, as well as the ones we've named. And, what struck me when Santos was talking too, and the question you had was, what I realized dealing with these people, having been in the church, is they don't believe. You see, ideology and belief is for the masses. It's not for the people in charge. They don't believe. One of the Native women I first worked with, Harriet Nahani, said, I always knew that these priests weren't Christians. They didn't have their own faith, because if they believed in heaven and hell, why would they harm little children? They knew they'd go to hell for it. None of them believe in this. They have no sense that what they're doing is wrong. It's all about money and power for them. It's like dealing. I remember when I used to go into prisons and prison ministry, occasionally meeting an out-and-out sociopath or psychopath, absolutely no conscience. And that's what institutions and corporations choose as their leaders. They select out. Only the psychopaths can lead corporations. The humanitarians are weeded out, like what happened to me in the church. So you can't make moral appeals. You have to threaten their money and their credibility, their public image. That's the only thing they understand. We're at war, people. And that's what the enemy understands. We've got to be realistic about that.
Kevin, there's a lot of talk about, and you guys brought this up to light in Canada, in the United States, in the UK, but what about down here, south of the border? There's been so much criminology down here with these priests and the abusive criminal Vatican organization just practically overtaking all the land. I mean, if you go here in Ecuador, in the capital, in Quito, where the government building is, the White House, let's say, around that building, there's 4 churches. And within 4 blocks, there's 8 massive, humongous cathedrals. I mean, they pretty much gobbled up all the property. So you also mentioned in your case that their property are gonna be is it gonna be confiscated, Kevin?
Absolutely. Like, it's important not to focus on the figureheads in the arrest. The main purpose of this is reclamation, taking back all of the stolen wealth and land and property. This was a demand raised by needy people themselves first in Canada. They, Cree people in Saskatchewan, have gone into Catholic churches, booted out the priest, and said, we never gave you permission to build here. They've taken over the church. We want to do that on a bigger scale because there's been massive fraud. Every year in Canada, taxpayers spend $15 billion so that the churches don't have to pay taxes, so that they can go rape children and murder Indian kids and never have to be held accountable for it. Not one person's ever gone to trial for the death of a child in a residential school. I mean, that's a system of fraud. And in America, it's just as bad, if not worse. We are beginning to work with survivors of Indian boarding schools in America, the same kinds of stories of murder and torture and mass graves all over the country, especially in the West, like in Canada. So, it's just beginning, and it's about taking back. This is what genocide really is. Genocide is theft of the land of other people, and we're taking it back.
I would like to suggest to you, Kevin, that to please make an effort to bring this information as well in Spanish, because there's a lot of people in our Spanish communities that don't know about this. I was telling you earlier that I was posting this, I was translating your information, and there were some people were laughing, and they're like, oh yeah, that's just another joke, and because they just don't get this information. So I would ask you to please make an effort to get this information out as well in Spanish, Kevin. Or are you guys working on something in Spanish?
We are. As a matter of fact, when I do my European trip in May and June, I've been invited to come to Barcelona and Madrid to work with people there who's had their kids taken under Franco, the Catholic Church, farming these kids out all over the place. So we're working in Spain. We also have invitations to come down to Mexico. So very much, we're a shoestring organization, and we need people to come forward all the time. So if you know people who'll translate to Spanish, that would help a lot. Thank you.
Very well. Kate.
Yep. Right here.
Okay. I was watching an interview the other day, Kate. Kate, I don't see you.
I'm here.
Okay. And
video okay? We're good?
There you go. Okay, I got you. Even though that these criminals are seeing their houses collapse, they still hold this arrogance. I was watching an interview from the Cardinal of Mexico. I forget his name. He was being interviewed by Jorge Ramos, which is a Spanish newscaster guy, a reporter, and I was very surprised that this guy Jorge Ramos was hitting the Cardinal with these hardcore questions about the pedophilia and the criminal priest. And midway through the interview, this Cardinal, the Mexican Cardinal, said, "You know what? Enough. He raised his voice. Enough. I don't want to hear this anymore. You're attacking a good organization. You're making us seem like we're criminals. Change the subject or this interview is over." I mean, to the point that I was saying, their true colors are just coming out,
Oh yeah, what you're dealing with there, Johnny, is the hubris of psychopathy. We're dealing with psychopathic, effectively cannibals that prey on the flesh and souls of others. This is one of the reasons why they attack children. They prefer younger children up until the early teens for their. I mean, we can get into all the bloodletting and the sacrificial rituals and all the rest of the crap that these most creepy people do. But when you get into a psychopathic state, and especially when you have had the run of the police forces, which are, as far as I'm concerned, just a bunch of armed thugs that are walking around protecting these pedophiles and psychos. A lot of hubris will develop because they start thinking that they're untouchable because they built a system that people worship. And you can start there in the religio-cosus chosenitis church buildings. And please understand this too. I need people to really get this, right? When I go after this concept, I'm not going after the everyday people that have been fooled and duped into something with a very deceptive, almost loving approach. I'm talking about the institution, the mind programming institutions that were deliberately built to do this. And of course they're going to say, I'm not, if you don't do what I want, ask the questions that I want, I'm leaving this interview. Well, fine, leave. You'll just prove your guilt with that anyway. And the fact that you cannot, be scrutinized means that you are hiding something. If you're, instead of just coming back and, barking out, well, I'm the one in control here, don't dare ask me those questions. I'll ask you whatever questions you want, you hubris prick. I don't care if you're wearing a dress, a gown. Quite frankly, I look a lot better than most of them, But, okay, I keep it real, This is the thing. This is the joy of being me, is I have nothing to hide. What these people have got to start learning, and I use the term people very loosely, and I won't call them animals because I happen to like puppies and kittens, but we're dealing with psychos of the lowest and highest order. These are individuals that will stop at nothing to satisfy whatever bloodlust, sex lust, greed lust that they're after. These are degraded entities to such a level, I can't even imagine being there. And seriously, all I have is pity. I have no hate in my heart for these individuals. These are individuals that need serious, serious help. They have degraded as spiritual beings to such a point that, as Kevin said earlier, the separation of the wheat and the chaff, and you can talk about the parting of the ways here. New Agers call it ascension. It has all sorts of different names, but there's something a brewing, and March is my vibe as well. With Uranus coming to Aries, the high brain, that's exactly how I see it. As above, so below. And Santa does a great job laying that map out. And what you're seeing right now are the effects of what's in the heavens happening here, as above, so below. What Kevin has initiated, what so many others have initiated with their own particular chosen path or chosen for them path, we're coming into those final days. These are the end days. This is when it comes down. We are in the age of Aquarius now. We've left the I believe, we've moved to the I know, and we're actually climbing back up Jacob's ladder. It's been laid out for us. If we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we will see it. And for those, and I will talk, there's a lot of different people out there that have made numerous attacks on individuals, be it on a personal level or whatever. What they need to do is get their heads out of their collective asses and stop looking at the drama of what they want to, look at me bullshit, and look at the intent. What are we trying to do here? There's not a whole lot of love in attacking an individual, and I will not sit on a show. And I've had people say before, well, you said this about me. I didn't say anything about you. Because I don't mention names. The only people I talk about are the ones that are on the show with me. If you've got a guilty conscience, that's your problem, not mine. Now, the fact is, there's not a lot of love in attacking someone with a good intent. Quite frankly, I think exposing the 50,000 murders of the native children has good intent involved. Regardless. This is not a personality contest, guys. I'm not here to win any, and I'm certainly not here to lose any, because I don't really care either way. What I'm here for is to take a really, really big shovel and dig a really big, big hole of truth and see what I can find. And Kevin's doing his job, Santa's doing his, I'm doing mine, Tony's doing his, and you're doing yours, Johnny. And everyone out there listening knows in their own heart of hearts that they have a job to do as well. And this is where we have to lose the fear, get in gear. Lose the name, last one, win the game. You got to stop worshiping Caesar. It's pretty simple. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Let the dead bury the fucking dead. Mm-hmm. Fair?
Absolutely. Santos.
Yes, my brother.
How is the I don't see you, Santos. Hello.
Oh.
Okay, there you go.
Should be able to see me.
Okay, there you go. How can we explain this to some folks who are just starting to see this program? They are not too well educated in all the work, the fantastic work that you have done, that Kate and Tony has done, that Kevin is doing. And I ask you this because you're very good in explaining this in simple terms, because a lot of our audience, on my end, from Quantum Leap Television, are fairly new to some of these things. So how can we explain this to them? All these things that are happening in a very simple terms, Santos.
Oh, young ones. Okay. Young ones need special help because they've been targeted more than everybody. You'll notice music is directed at them. The Sony and all of these creepy corporations make very, very sleazy, sexual, degrading videos targeted at about 11 to 14-year-olds. And of course, they want you in school. You've got to have that uniform in school, schooled in a state school, at least primary and secondary education. Of course, the Catholic Church is behind that. They know that you got to get into their heads before the age of 7, and then, you can, they're malleable, and then, of course, you've got them until 15, and then they get a job. Hopefully a job in one of the corporations that the Vatican has set up so that they can prosper in every single way. So these people, young ones, need to see that they've been treated like chattel. We need to open their eyes to make them see that they are much more than everything their pathetic religions have been telling them that they are. Those silly stories that, someone's going to come from in the clouds to come and save you. Don't bother doing anything yourself, Now, these silly stories, young children have been indoctrinated, and even though a lot of young children don't even bother with those stories anymore and won't even bother going to church because of the abuse, they still have been given false gods and false idols to worship. All of those superstars on television, they've been directed to worship politicians and important people. Rich people are good. They've got a lot of value. They've made it in the world. Let's put them on the pedestal and make them role models. Sports people. So they've replaced their own beautiful light and heroship with someone else's heroship. Created and manufactured on TV. So we need to help young children to see that it's all about them. It's not about what's on television and all of those glossy magazines and all that crap. It's about them, and give them their power back rather than being controlled. Mm-hmm. And help them. And also, I enjoy giving young ones tips about how fictional the fictional law system is. I mean, I love shredding it to bits. And I give them a lot of power by telling them, ask questions. When a policeman comes to you and is always asking, what's your name? Where do you live? Where do you reside? What are you doing? Where were you going? Why have you got your pockets full of things? What's in your pockets? All of these questions, ask questions back. You can't go to jail for asking questions. Just ask questions. You're not obliged to. He's not a slave master. He's not your master. You're not obliged to be forced to have to under duress to answer everything that they ask. We have that ability too. We have the ability to ask, what's your name? What's your office? Where's your oath? Do you have an oath? Are you serving me, or are you serving something else? That's how we can empower young children.
Very well. Kevin, we got a few more minutes. Kevin? Hello, Kevin. Is he there?
Yes, I am here,
okay.
Yeah.
So what's the next step with your organization? What's the next step in with this order, with this guilty verdict? What is the next plan?
Well, if we don't hear back from these folks in a week, we're going to start the enforcement procedures. We're going to look at all sorts of ways to perform citizens' arrests. We're going to find ways of banning people from the communities. We're going to find direct action, occupation of churches and church offices. We're going to turn up the heat. We've got people in 15 countries now who are pledged to do this. So it's a work in progress. It's just started. We'll make mistakes. We're human. We're an organism, not an organization, right? And the important thing is for people to pick up the example and do it in their own communities. Otherwise, our example will go nowhere. It depends on people lighting their own flame off this spark and not thinking the spark is going to be it. But in the short run, we're going to be looking at enforcement. We're then going to start a new round of cases in the spring, looking at the relationship between big pharmaceutical companies and the Vatican and other churches. So people who have cases in that, I want to remind you of our show, first Saturday of the month, We the Jury. It'll be this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. on Blog Talk Radio, and we're going to have two of our citizen jurors on there talking about how they came to their verdict. That's blogtalkradio.com/we the jury this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, Kevin, thank you very much for your excellent work and your bravery in bringing this to light. And you just reminded me that you have, just like Santos as well, Kate and Tony as well, but you in Santos, you've been a minister with what is the United Church, right? Is that correct?
Formerly, yeah.
Yes. So you were an inside guy, you were there, and you sort of played a role for a little while. So it's not that you just sort of popped up out of the blue and say, you know what, I'm going to create a name for myself. No, you were an inside guy. You were doing something good from the heart, but then you saw these shenanigans that was going around, and all of a sudden you were kicked out because you started to ask questions, like Santos said. So I really appreciate the work that you've done, and my friend, you're welcome to come back anytime that you'd like to share with us any information, any updates. Please feel free to contact me so we can get it on here and expose as much information as we can.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate being with all of the brothers here today. We have a really great time. I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you, Kevin. Tony.
Yes, Johnny, I'm here.
Okay, so Tony, we have a couple of minutes. I know we wanted to get to some of the stuff that you guys came across the other day on your radio show. Maybe we can give a little bit of that, and hopefully maybe we could do another show because we're almost out of time. But please do share a little bit of that information that you wanted to share with us that went on in your radio show the other day, Tony.
Yes, certainly. We thought that taking down the church was a large ask, and we thought that taking down a lot of these systems were impossible, most of us. But the situation is, as you can clearly see, we're doing just that. And it's the same with physics, and it's the same with the fundamental models that have been taught in universities, in schools, in institutions all over the planet, from quantum physics and all sorts of things. Let me give you an example. We were always taught that there was no such thing as free energy. Well, go and look at the sun. Nobody's paying it to shine is one example. And we're also taught that light travels in particles. Well, a brilliant analogy that Brett brought forward the other day, who's in the interview. He said, well, if light travels in particles, how does it get out the light bulb? If I took a marble and threw it at a glass jar, how's that going to pass through the glass jar without breaking it? So how can light be a particle? It must be a wave. And when you just think about that for a moment, the lights go on. And it's those type of revolutionary examples that when you begin to explain these to people, it sets things off in their head, and they start to think, well, okay, maybe I need to look at this a little bit more. And that was a couple of examples, but what Brett was actually talking about, and this is incredible, we were talking about the High Altitude Aurora Research Program, now, or the HARP, to cut it short. And then basically this is a weather modification system. It's a harmonic control system that can control many, many things, from typhoons to tsunamis, earthquakes even, just with harmonic frequencies. And one of the things that he brought up was how this harmonic it's a bit like an opera singer singing at a glass. If you can hit that high C, the glass will shatter. And it's the same with the rock in the earth. If you hit it on a low, dense vibration, it will shake the rocks because it's resonating. And that is what HARP is used for, weather modification. It can be used for mind control as well. Again, all of the information is there for you to look at. And one of the other things that came up, which I actually put out on the show, was that they've harmonically tuned all of the railway lines to work with HARP frequencies. Metal structures as well, all over the planet, have been tuned to work with these. And also oil rigs, which have been sunk down deep into the actual the shell of the earth, so that these all resonate with the harmonic frequencies that have been beamed at them. Now, people need to do some research on HARP to understand it. But that was one point that we got across, and that was a breaking news. People can go to Carney.com, CARNICOM, to back up and to check on that information. The other point was that he exposed the fact that he has been teleporting under NSA, CIA or Black Ops programs basically for a long time. He's not the only one. Andrew Basiago has also been involved. There's many individuals. There's loads of information with Alfred Weber, etc., about these technologies that really exist. And if you think that you can't teleport something, well, come back to the marble. If everything is indeed a wave, which Santos is explaining and we're explaining, that the whole existence is waves, it's not particles, then why can't you teleport a wave? But anyway, the information is there. And also, we have had free energy systems hidden from us. If you can get incredible amounts of electricity, and electricity and magnetism are two components as fundamentals, then you can also get massive amounts of magnetism. And if you can get magnetism, you can manipulate magnetism to create vehicles that defy gravity. All of this, if you've never heard of it, that's fine. But when you look at even Nikola Tesla's, some of his work, it will explain that this is real. You just need to get two north magnets and put them together. You'll soon see they don't want to go. There's a force, and it's the same force as we've got around our planet. So we were explaining some of these things, and if we have got, basically it's not anti-gravity, it's electrogravitic energy systems that defy gravity and can leave this planet, you've also got to factor in that we've been to other planets. And I did the book Blueprints of Cosmic Consciousness that breaks all this out. It covers lots and lots and lots of different people who've done this stuff. And this is where we go on to travel to other planets, because that was one of the things. Brett Stillings exposed his Mars trips to other planets. So people really need to do some research on this. If you still think that the sun needs paying to shine, and you think that light can't exit a light bulb because it's a particle, you need to think about it, because there's lots of things they have not told you about.
Right.
And I'll leave it there.
Okay. Thank you, Tony, very much. Tony from synchronicity.com. Please check out the website, visit all and see what all the stuff that they're doing over there at synchronicity.com. Kate, my friend, we have a few more minutes left.
Yes. No problem.
How do we explain to the folks how to look at things differently, right? Kate.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. How about we just start looking at some solutions? A lot of the breaking news is happening right now. Things like the Pope stepping down, Cardinal quitting today, won't vote to elect another Satan leader. Another bit of interesting information came out recently with Miran Kesh, and the fact that Iran has basically rendered the industrial military complex obsolete with certain things that they have. Now they've already taken down 2 drones intact. Using this technology, and it's a fact that, as Miran put it, it was like this: we have something that you can build for $100 that can take out a $1 billion stealth B-2 from thousands of kilometers away. I don't know about you, but something that can render missiles and planes and stealth and all the rest of it completely obsolete makes it rather expensive for anyone to continue this insanity of waging war. On our brethren. This is you're only killing yourself by doing this. So let's get some hope here. There's a reason why the Israelis and the Americans haven't attacked Iran, because they know they can't. And you'll have all this rhetoric and all this buildup of fear porn, as I call it, of Russia and China are going to do. No, they're not. Not in my watch. Not from what I'm seeing. Not a chance. And this is the thing. You have to trust in the heavens, guys. As above, so below. And all you have to do is pay attention and have eyes to see and ears to hear. Best to pay attention to people like Santo, because I know a few others that can explain it as well as he can in the simplest terms. The heavens rule. That's why this is your heaven right here, right? The true heaven of the heart and the mind combined. You're a powerful God. And of course there's going to be people out there who said, oh, you're a new age or this. No, I'm not. I'm just me. But the bottom line is, You got to ask yourself the tough questions. Stop looking outside for answers. You're not going to find them there. You're going to find the net results of the effect, but the true cause is within you. And you better start taking responsibility for yourself, or you're going to get your ass left behind. And we're doing all we can. And I do want to throw a little plug in here because I think it's very important. There was a quote made on a radio show on Thursday night by a certain individual regarding, quote goes like this: well, usually when we do a job like this, it was none other than Heather Tookie Giraffe from Opt, which if I have to be the first to go on record, it's a COINTELPRO game, guys. This is a last-ditch effort of those that want to take the awakened, the desperate and hurting we all are. You know, that's why the truthers have such a hard time, because we've been marginalized so hard. I have no fears of standing out and saying, you know what, at least have a look at it. I'm real suspicious, and when I see something come out that fast, that big, with very little known about the people, you know, that started it in the background, I know a lot of people are involved, and they're beautiful people. This is why I know what they're doing is making that one last-ditch effort to retain as many souls in this fiction, bullshit, materialistic, come and get the rabbits of $10 billion, keep you hanging on to the ghost ship, that they can. So you best wake up, guys, and move along and get your head out of your collective asses and start looking instead of dreaming because somebody weighs a fucking carrot in front of you.
Thank you very much, Kate from Synchronicity.com.
No problem.
It's always a pleasure to have you, and good luck with all the radio shows, and of course we'll see you here next Monday. Thank you, Kate. Santos.
Johnny,
yes,
Johnny, did you say pleasure or pressure? Anyway, love you. Talk to you in a bit.
Santos.
Yes, brother, yes.
Okay, so we have just a couple more seconds to go, Santos. Last thoughts. Before you give us your last thoughts, I forgot to tell you about this in that interview that I was telling Kate when I was watching the Cardinal from Mexico talking to Jorge Ramos from Univision. Jorge Ramos asked him, well, what's going to happen in the next election of the Pope? Are you going to elect maybe a black Pope or maybe a Hispanic Pope? And he said, No. What do you think this is? Elections, government elections? No, we go into the conclave, right? That's that correct word? Conclave, and we hear and we receive the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit tells us who we are going to elect as the Pope. I mean, at that moment, I really felt like vomiting. I mean, it was really, I couldn't, stomach it, not because I know all these things, but it just didn't sound right, And I think a lot of people are starting to get this, this nonsense that the Holy Spirit is going to come down on them, and they're going to be enlightened to select the correct Pope. It's just vomiting. So any last thoughts on this whole idea that we've been talking about tonight, Santos?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that to select a pope, you have to go into a secret room, and it's called a conclave. Well, if I haven't mistaken the Latin language, would that be conclave? Would that mean with key? Because they've got to shut the door with a key so that no one else can see their secret decisions. That's how the Jehovah's Witnesses used to appoint elders and ministerial servants. They'd pray to Jehovah for the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit would say, yes, Brother Johnson can be a good elder. He fits the model, sure. Yeah, he's pedophile, he's abusive, he's a despot. That's the perfect elder in the congregation. Yes, that's the Holy Spirit. Of course you nearly vomited, because it's disgusting to think that these creeps, these pedophiles, can actually even mention the word Holy Spirit. It's not the Holy Spirit, it's the disgusting spirit. It's the disgusting spirit of abuse and parasite, and it's got to end. It's got to end. These are our brothers. They deserve to have peace too. So it's great to see that the fiction is being stabbed in the heart. David has finally picked up some stones and decided that we don't need Goliath taunting us and sapping us of all of our energy and currency anymore. So my last thoughts would be stand up, know who you are, and live forever immortally as a god, rather than an imbecile under their system.
You know, Bruce Lipton said, you know, knowledge is power, and the lack of knowledge is the lack of power, right? So it's very important that you folks continue to listen to shows like this, and especially Santos, Kate, Tony, and now Kevin as well, and other good people that are doing fantastic work and bringing to light a lot of these topics, information that most people probably wouldn't even think about. You know, I mean, Jordan Maxwell, and when he was talking about astrotheology and, you know, the birth certificate 40 years ago, they were looking at him like he was insane, you know, and things now are just have changed completely. And I want to take the time right now, also before we leave, to promote the film. When you saw Santos speak, you would see at the bottom it says bonaccidefilm.com. This is a project, for those of you guys that don't know, that we're working on. Santos has been compiling information that is going to blow everybody's mind, that it's just probably going to be impossible just to do in one movie, and we're looking to do various movies. So we'd like to inform you about that. Please visit the page www.bonaccidefilm.com, and there you can help us out with your donations or with ideas. We were talking about Santos before, that, you know, whenever we exchange work, right, you know, a third party benefits probably more. You know, a great example of that is the farmer. You know, he grows the corn, you know, and he gets 10 cents a corn, yet the middle guy, he gets $1.50 per corn, you know, and he doesn't do anything. And yet the farmer is doing all the hard work. You know, so maybe we can think of ideas to maybe help in this project. I'm glad to also say that a very nice woman by the name of Elizabeth from France has volunteered to translate the film once it's done in French. So this is fantastic. And another woman has done the same thing in Spanish. You know, so this is the kind of support that we need. You know, if you can help us with money, then maybe share some ideas. You know, give us some ways to you know, create more interest in this film, because I guarantee you, from the stuff that you have sent me, Santos, it's very interesting, and the way we're structuring this whole project is definitely going to be a light to the world. So, any words on that you would like to say, Santos, about the film before we go?
I would encourage everyone to support us with energy in any way, any currency you can, because this film will benefit mankind. This film will obliterate all the fictions with pure science, pure knowable science. We are only going to be sharing in the video what is known and what can be known. That's all. No distortion of facts. No hidden agendas, just what is known and what can be known. And once you see those essential basic truths, and then all the delusions just peel away. All fictions disappear. It will be the movie of all movies, of all documentaries, to awaken the masses. This will awaken many, many more people than the Renaissance and the Bogomils and the Cathars and the Socinians and the whoever else put together.
Okay, my friend.
And that's not a boast. That will happen. It will happen. So I advise anyone loving and willing to support it, because you're going to be going a million times if you don't. Because it will be to your own detriment. This is for the benefit of mankind. It will absolutely benefit man like nothing else.
Okay, and yes, and Santos will be down here in Ecuador April 30th, the 1st of May. You will be here for a whole month for this production. Okay, Santos, thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin Arnett. Thank you, Kate and Tony. It's been a fantastic hour and a half. The hour just flew by. Thank you once again, and we'll see you. I'll see you on Thursday for our Spanish show, Santos. Thank you once again. Ciao. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank you once again for being here with us. I just remind you one last time, please visit www.bonaccidefilm.com. Please help us out with any donation or any information that you can share with us for this fantastic project that's based on the research of Santos Bonacci. That's going to do it for us. Have a good evening, and I'll see you tomorrow for another edition of The Truth Hour. Ciao.